Hi, welcome to Ordinary People. It's always fun to record these, but tonight's going to be extra fun because we've not just got one guest, we've got three guests. Of course, the show isn't complete without Andrew and Neil.
Hi.
Um,
Hi, Paul.
hi. Uh, Andrew has conveniently titled this live recording COVID-19 The Truth. All I can say is we'll do our best. So we've invited a few friends who are a lot more knowledgeable about this area than we are. So big thanks to Lynsey, Joe, and Sunil. So guys, could you introduce yourselves just a bit about who you are and what you do, please? Lynsey, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I'm Lynsey Lucas. I'm the local practice nurse in Richard Health Centre, and I'm married to Reuben. I have three kids here, Faith, Rosie, and Jethro. So I'm busy working mum, like a lot of the guys hopefully watching.
Joe?
I'm Joe or Joanne, and I get called Joe by most people. I'm married to Neville, and we have three. And we have three. I don't know what that was. We have three children. Amelia is 8, nearly 8. Ethan is 4.5, and Aaron has just turned 3. I'm in the same role as Lynsey in that I'm the practice nurse in Market Hill Health Centre. And then since more or less last year, my background was ICU. So from this time last year, then I've been doing extra shifts in the intensive care unit in Craigavon.
Thank you very much. Sunil, last but not least.
Hi all, I'm Sunil. So I'm here to work for Almac as a technical leader. So I have a PhD in molecular microbiology from University of Hyderabad in India. I've been studying microorganisms all my life, and I have a master's degree in biochemistry. So I know most of the things, how they work biologically. And with respect to viruses, yes, I have worked on a few viruses, but not the ones that infect humans anyway, but predominantly they have a similar kind of a structure and function, but they work on, they are called bacteriophages, and they infect bacteria. So yeah, a little bit of there. So I've been married since 5 years. I have a 6-month-old daughter now, and I'm here in Craigavon working for Almac, as I said before. So I'll take up any questions and anything as it goes.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sonny.
Paul.
Where are you from, Sonny?
I'm from India. So I'm from South India, basically. I'm from a town called Mysore, just 100 miles away from Mysore, from Bangalore. So, but I studied for 10 to 15 years in Hyderabad. So I did my PhD and I worked for a pharmaceutical company there, and then relocated to Northern Ireland.
Excellent. So, Sonny, we're going to be asking a few kind of dumb questions, really, because that's really all we don't know very much. So we're going to put you on the spot first, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So, really simple one. A simple question, probably a difficult answer. Maybe. What is a virus?
Well, from since the inception of time, so people have been trying to classify the forms of life. What people mostly say, in order for a organism to qualify as being alive, is it has to respire. That is, it has to consume oxygen or any other things where it can convert that into a form of energy by itself. Well, it has to reproduce. So virus certainly qualifies that it does reproduce. And of course, it has to have all the genetic information and a whole cellular structure, so which the virus has. But there is a main difference among them as well. So if it doesn't respire and reproduce on its own, should you call that a living organism? So that question has always evaded since a long time. So there are two different schools. Some say yes, viruses are alive. Yes, they are alive. And some say no, they're just a form of life, a very primitive form of life. Yes, they're a very primitive form of life. So there's no right answer for this. But well, according to us biologists, does it carry a genetic information? Yes, it does. Can it reproduce? Yes, it can. Can it survive? Yes, it can. So we call it more of a living entity.
So this coronavirus that we've been all inflicted with at the moment,
Yeah.
some just by the situation we're in with the lockdown and stuff, and others have been affected by it directly. But what is it? Not just like the flu virus, or what makes it different?
Well, it is. We have bouts of flu coming over from time to time. It doesn't take the same toll as any other flu. So we have seen a lot of respiratory viruses before as well. So let's take SARS or MERS. So all, even a rhinovirus, all these are typically the common influenza virus. All these typically are the common viruses that float around. So, so from being there from time to time, they start to adapt over to the environment that they have been in. So most of these have a carrier host as well. So the more uh, uh, predominantly that these viruses stay among ourselves, the more advanced they get, the more sophisticated they get, the more prepared they are when they come around next time. So the coronavirus is very similar to the MERS and the SARS family of viruses. So they have the quick adaptability of this virus, and the ability of this to infect such a mass is very fast. So that's why I think whatever the precautions that we are taking now is, I would say, they are not sufficient. They're at least keeping us safe from uh, from the from us catching on the infection and then transmitting along. So if we are just trying to break the chain, that's what most of the advertisements have been advocating: washing your hands and then wearing a face mask. All these certainly do help in a larger sense. So if you see that, the studies have shown that the flu cases have gone down as well. So that is all because of the awareness of public to stay away from each other. And we know that now the vulnerable group, and we have how we have to protect them, and how we have to stay safe among ourselves, and how for a common good we all can contribute to stay aware of the situation and maybe break the chain. And then again, of course, the new vaccination attempts that have come in, which have been stepped up very rapidly to help the masses. So all these have certainly a huge role to play. So again,
Yeah.
uh,
Very good. I'm going to ask you one more question, Sonny, and then I'm going to hand over to Neil.
please.
So with this COVID-19, I suppose with most viruses, they start from somewhere, as in they've popped up from somewhere.
Yeah.
What do you understand about that, and what is what do we look out for to?
Well, if you see the most of the viruses have we say that the originator species, or from where they might have originated. So they are in many, historically, if you see, there are many cases where rodents and of course bats and many other organisms serving as a reservoir host. Like for rabies, it's mostly from dogs and bats and few other organisms which serve as a reservoir host. So when these viruses stay dormant in a reservoir host, that is, they don't really cause an elicit a complete sort of an infection onto the carrier host, the reservoir host that it has been. But they always serve as a platform where they start developing themselves in order. They start developing themselves. They mutate. They organize themselves much better. So they're just a breeding ground for them. And then once, with the current human population and current human healthcare conditions and current zoonotic affiliations that we have. So there are umpteen number of factors which they can contribute to transmit amongst the closer relating species, that is us. And then from there on, it just starts as it usually starts as one case, where then you see that it has then propagated itself to a few more groups in the community, and then so far it spreads. You see, it's more of a ripple effect that you see. So it just then there is no way of halting the transmission altogether. So it just keeps on going, and then keeps on taking whatever it wants. And then at the end, there is always a case where you have to prepare yourself, where you can from vaccination, or how you can halt this transmission from going to the next stage. So now, so like most of the flu viruses and most of rhinoviruses, which occur in a isolated cases and then keeps coming back. So they always are endemic to a region, and then they keep coming back, and again, so it gets transmitted again. So we have seen this in many number of viral cases as well. So it's nothing new that SARS-CoV-19 is something which came out of the blue. It has always stayed here in nook and corners, and then it found the right time where it has just a new variant has evolved, which can infect much better, which can stay with us for a longer time, which can transmit better, and then infect the masses in. And since the world now has become more travel friendly as well, people come and go. So then it starts from one city, that becomes the epicenter. From there you have more people going around, and then it starts to spread across, and then it has the whole planet now covered. So this was never new, because you have seen historically we have seen the plague and many other viruses that were as early as 1000 BC, which were found in some part of Kazakhstan or some part of a Manchurian region, which was only endemic to that region, which would have only consumed people and the masses there, and it would have never transmitted. So now we all have read the stories where a ship comes in from a port from China to Europe, or from China to America, and you see lots of losses of life, and the plague being traveling across, consuming a lot of human population, reducing the population to by 50 to 60% or 70% or even 80% effectively in lots of regions. So the viral infection or the bacterial infections are nothing new. They've always stayed. But what makes COVID more edgy is that the transmission rates are higher, the infection manifests much more better, and of course the loss of life is quite huge as well.
We'll come back to you towards the end then, Sonny. I appreciate that. It's so helpful. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Sunil and Paul. It's my joy to be able to have a bit of a chat here with two of Rich Hill's finest, we've heard a wee bit about the science, about where it all comes from, but Lynsey and Joanne have been right at the heart of responding to the consequences of this outbreak, and I'm so really grateful. I'm really grateful that they're on this call with me, but more so than that, I'm really grateful for all that they've done, all that they've been involved in, right in the front lines for the last year or more. So girls, we'll just go back and forth. We'll see how this goes. But as I said, thank you for your time, and Lynsey, maybe I'll start with you. you had done what I found. I know you did it for the kids at the school, but you'd done a video for the kids in our local primary school, just helping them just navigate through some questions around the vaccine and what it is and what it does. And so, could I ask that question to you for us adults tonight? Like, just tell us a wee bit more about the vaccine and what it does. And
well, following on from Sunny, I feel like I can't really answer that question without looking like a 3-year-old. So, yeah, even just listening to Sunny, it makes me realise just how important the vaccine is. We're, as Joanne will know, we're so used to doing the flu vaccine as well, and you do it without thinking, and you do hundreds of them without thinking on a week-to-week basis over winter. But the virus, or I suppose the vaccine, the simplest way we could put it to the kids in the video was that the vaccine just mimics COVID, the real virus. So it just looks like it. And as Dr. Manari had said to the kids, your body recognizes this as being odd and strange. And so therefore wants to send little soldier cells to fight that. So that if you do become infected with real COVID, your body already recognizes it as being strange and already has the soldiers ready and prepared to fight that war. So I think that is a simple explanation for the kids, but I think it's very simple for adults as well. It's very difficult to tell anybody with a medical background or without a medical background exactly what a vaccine does, but that's it in a nutshell.
Great. Joe, I know you've been in the front line where you've general practice, but we're gonna veer those questions toward Lynsey. If you just give us a wee bit of an overview of what it's been like for you in the hospital.
Yeah. So as I said in the introduction, I worked in ICU. My background was ICU and worked there for about 12 years and then left there 4 years ago to go to a practice nurse post in Market Hill. So when this all started off about this time last year, they really needed the help basically from nurses who had ICU experience. So I thought I'd go and help the best way I could. To say that it was nothing like I've ever experienced in nursing before is an understatement. You see it on the TV. The TV does portray it, but to be there in real life was just something else. The number of patients, it was so much more than we had ever seen before. And this is me saying this. I was only there the odd time. I was only there maybe at the most 3 shifts a week. There's girls there doing it day in, day out, full-time hours, night duty, the whole works. And I have to honour them in the middle of all this as well. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But so going in and just nursing the number of patients that there actually were, sick patients, working in full red PPE, that was probably one of the biggest challenging things, especially at the very beginning when you weren't used to it. So wearing a really tight face mask, I came out and my nose was physically bruised and round my cheeks from just wearing a mask and wearing it so tight. And everybody was petrified. We had no idea what we were dealing with. And so the staff were scared too, so wearing our masks, wearing our visors, wearing gowns, and nursing ICU patients is challenging at the best of times, as you can understand, but having all these worries on top of it definitely was tricky. But like I remember, I think it was maybe on the second surge, I can't remember exactly, but we had to move then. So the ICU in Craigavon has 8 beds, so we can take 8 patients in there. But obviously the numbers were higher than that. So we had to decant or move over to recovery, which was able to hold a lot more. So initially they had just used the small area of recovery, and I was in one night duty and I knew the numbers had increased. But I went into night duty one night and I remember walking into the unit, and this has never happened to me before in my life, working on ICU. I actually gasped because I looked down the unit and there was just beds up both sides of the unit, loads of staff. It was a handover time, so there was a lot of people about. And all this staff and PPE, and it honestly looked like a war hospital. It was like a scene. And as I say, it was the first time in my life that I was actually shocked. And it was a shock myself as to how shocked I actually was. if you know what I mean. And then I just sort of dealt with it and like, right, get on, you know, and nurse the patients. But it definitely, like, even the patients coming in were so sick, you know. It's like nothing that we've ever seen before. And as I say, we didn't really know what we were dealing with, but patients would be in the ward and then they weren't managing on the ward and they had to come down to ICU. And like, I mean, I admitted a man one day, it was an afternoon shift that I had just been on duty. And this man came down and he was brought down quickly because he really was struggling. And to say he was petrified was an understatement. And all I could do was hold his hand. There was loads of people about. It was all a bit chaotic because we're having to try and basically save his life at this stage. And he couldn't speak to me because he had a really tight face mask on, give him in really high pressured oxygen. And he was just looking at me with these complete fear in his eyes. And all I could do was hold his hand and say, "You're going to be okay. You're safe. We know what we're doing. We're looking after you." And there's only like, it's so hard to know, is what I'm saying to this patient the right thing to be saying, you know, just trying to reassure him. And he hadn't seen his family. That was another big issue that probably was one of the main things I struggled with at the very beginning as well, was of these patients being so sick in ICU. And one of the main things for patients and part of the recovery is getting their family in and letting them speak to their family, and they couldn't do that. And this man hadn't seen his family. He was so sick. He was coming to ICU to be put to sleep, be put on a ventilator, and we're all he has. We were his family at that time. So all I could do was literally just held his hand and I spoke to him the whole time, and as he was being put off to sleep, and he did okay actually, which was really, really good. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Joe. Although I've heard like you talk many times about like how you've some of your experiences in ICU, it still rattles me even now when you're like relaying some of those stories. It still rattles me the personal impact that it's had on people and families. But it rattles me too because you're like a strong personality, when it comes to nursing, you certainly are one of those characters. And so whenever I heard that you were shocked, that I knew it must have been bad. And just when Joanne's rightfully reflecting on the importance of honouring her colleagues in the ICU, Lynsey, could you paint a wee bit of a picture, if you can, of what it's been like working within the community, working with patients, working with your staff, and sort of a big picture view of what it's been like for you guys in the health centre?
I suppose she's got the two sides of it. You're seeing it in the thick of things where you are absolutely scared. It's flying by the seat of your pants. And I suppose in the practice, we initially, all practices throughout the UK went into a closed door policy. Certainly the GPs did the triage system so that it was only those people that actually needed face-to-face physical exam would come in. I don't know what Market Hill did with their practice nursing, but there's a lot of patients still need to be seen. Whether you don't want to open your doors or not, a lot of those patients need their bloods monitored, they need things checked. And that is going to be, unfortunately, the long problems with COVID, all the patients that we've missed and we haven't been checking. But just like Joanne was saying, even though we are in a more controlled environment in the practice and that you're there only 9 to 5 or whatever and off your weekends, there still was a fear element. You still do have, and especially in those early days when we didn't know exactly what the real symptoms were, and you are up close and personal with patients, and we didn't have the red PPE on. We had a mask and an apron, and to be fair, I don't know what on earth an apron's really going to do to you. It's a plastic sheet. But so there was an element, everybody was, and even now you still do have it in the back of your head. You're continually speaking to patients up close and personal, thinking you could have COVID. You're probably going to give me COVID. Am I going to give you COVID? But on the other hand, you're working in a very tight-knit team, and just as Joanne is saying about, you become family for your patients. from what I felt in Rich Hill Health Centre anyway, was you definitely became much more of a family this year. And for me, it was nice. I feel it was a blessing and a privilege to go to work every day. Unlike a lot of people who have had to work from home, I couldn't have done it. And I suppose for me, it's been a saving grace to go down there. But I definitely feel we've all got a lot tighter and respected each other a lot more. And I do think that the whole system has become more streamlined. I know a lot of patients probably disagree with the triage system and telephone system, but for us, we are getting through a lot more patients and able to filter out the things that we don't need to put people at risk coming in. And just those people that really need seen will be seen. And from a personal point of view, I think that works a lot better and it's a lot safer. So.
Well, that's so powerful, that idea of you've become more like a family. It's like, just love the idea of that. And I suppose on that, Lynsey, like I imagine that's really important at the minute with some of the, well, I'm assuming this, you can speak to this, when it comes to the fears that some people will have over taking the vaccine.
Yeah.
Like, so imagine that, like becoming family, becoming like somebody that they are trusting with all their fears and all their risks. I know we had all our fears at the beginning, but it's now like it's a different type of fear.
Yeah, it is. And because of media, social media is wonderful when it needs to be. It's an absolute nightmare whenever it wants to be. And funny, away in the initial lockdown, that was one of the things I said. I never really was that, I suppose, not that proud of my profession. I never really thought of it like that. I just thought it was my job and my vocation. But I remember one of the nights standing out clapping for the NHS, back in the Thursday nights. And I remember thinking, wow, you're in such a privileged position. People are at their most vulnerable. And like you were saying, Joanne, they don't have their families there. You are the only hand they're going to hold. And you really are, they will take your word for it. And I suppose, as you say, Neil, about the vaccine, they are coming in with these strange ideas, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. And we can't tell patients to do it, but it's our only way out from our medical point of view. And there was one patient I was speaking to only just yesterday, and they said, "Oh, but do you think I'm fit for it, Lynsey? Being in hospital and whatnot." And I said, "Well, I think that you're definitely not fit to get COVID."
That's what you say.
But I think that if you got the vaccine and yes, you have the side effects and you're in bed for 48 hours and you have headaches, do you know what? You're going to get over that. If you get COVID, I can't stand over that. I really can't stand over that. So, and I think in our own families, you can say whatever you like to each other, but whenever somebody who maybe does have a bit of clout about what they're talking about, when they say that, it's just that wee reassurance. So.
I'm imagining the challenge of that between, because now is not the time to spread conspiracy theories, but it's also probably not the time to force your opinions on others either. So I just imagine that tricky balance that you both must be facing. But
sometimes in that note, Nate, sorry I'm interrupting. What I would say sometimes to patients is, like, you trust the GP when you want your blood pressure sorted or when you want your diabetes sorted. You trust the GP to sort that out. And so we have to put our trust in the experts, the immunologists who have created these vaccines, have went to university and got degrees and doing all this. And we have to put our trust in them. They don't want this farce as much as anybody else does. And they want us to get over this. And so we have to put our trust in them too.
Very good, Joe. That's really helpful. Because I was just reflecting on that this afternoon, just how unhelpful it is when we call into question the ethics or the intentions of bodies like the WHO without any evidence at all, and it's just really unhelpful to do that. But what you've spoke to there, Joe, is really good, really important. I know you've touched on it a wee bit, Joe, but just because you both brought out the theme of families here, which I'm so struck by it. I'm really grateful for what you're sharing. But if you can, obviously you're not going to break any confidentiality, but just remind us again how hard it has been for families. So, I know you've talked about the difficulty, and thankfully that one guy made it. but like the challenge of like
a lot
having to
didn't.
communicate with an iPad
Yeah.
and then what it's been like after that.
Yeah.
For those that haven't made it.
It, as I say, from the very beginning, that was probably one of the biggest things I struggled with. And I remember coming home here one night after a shift and the ladies being, where we were meeting on Zoom, you know, to pray. And I literally cried because I thought these patients are lying in ICU and their families can't get in to see them. And it is just, you can imagine having your relative in ICU at the best of times, but not being able to get in and see them and hold their hand and talk to them was just something that I had never dealt with. And so I really did struggle with it. We did try then to facilitate, and the hospital were very good at it. They were able to purchase iPads. So we were able to use an app and set it up that the family were able to phone in, or we were able to phone the family. But even doing that, of holding an iPad up to a patient and letting the family speak to the patient. And sometimes it was positive, and other times it was really tough, really, really tough. I can't even begin to describe basically what it was like, but to hear, I'm being raw here, like to hear families sobbing, literally sobbing on the other end of the phone because their relative was like this and they couldn't get in to see them. And that in itself is just unreal. And even for those patients then who were coming to the end of life, now it did change as the surges went on, because initially they weren't allowed any visitors, and then in the next time they were maybe allowed, it depended on the consultant decision and stuff, if they were allowed a visitor for if it came to the end of life. And that in itself was just, it's really hard to describe. It really is. But it really was challenging. And for those families, my heart absolutely broke for them, because I couldn't even begin to imagine what it would be like having your mummy or your daddy or your sister or your brother and them coming to the end of life and not being able to be there with them. But we reassured families. All we could do was reassure them they are never on their own. We are there holding their hand. We did a wee initiative where we a relative knitted like love hearts, literally about the size of your palm, and we give, when that patient passed away, we left a wee heart with the patient, and another one we give to the family, with their belongings, so it felt like they had some sort of connection. But yeah, we were their family in that time, and we did what we could to help. Yeah,
honestly, really powerful, because like we can all have our ideas and our opinions, but communicating here tonight with people that clearly have been moved and affected by it is something entirely different. And I just hearing Lynsey say that she just thought this was a normal job, that she went in and did her practice nurse, but now you're thrust into doing things that you've never had to do before. Just what you're saying, Joe, like you've never dealt with some of the things that you've had to deal with, and so I think it's really important for us to point that out as well. We'll take another few minutes here. I think I've asked this question to you both, but is there anything around the misinformation that you have found that is making things difficult? Or is there any particular misinformation that you think that is making things particularly difficult for you in the roles that you're in?
I don't know, Joanne, about you, but at the minute, I suppose one of my biggest issues in Rich Hill anyway is we don't get a lot of information until the entire population of the UK has the information. So, you've maybe not been in since Friday and you come in on Monday, but it has been advertised everywhere that, this group and this group and this group, they can all now go to the lakes, or you can just do that. And then we come in, or they're told, there's so many vaccines and being delivered to Northern Ireland, you'll be getting your vaccine this week. We flat out, you get in, you're trying to order vaccine, and they told you're not getting any vaccine for 2 weeks. And I know John's going to be like me in this. I would work 24 hours a day vaccinating people. I really would right now to get it done.
Yeah.
Because I can't wait till it's done.
Yeah.
But so it's really frustrating. We're only coming in and you're maybe getting an email to say, well, now this group can go here or whatever. And then you're coming up with maybe negative comments, maybe from patients as well. They're saying, why haven't I got mine? Or why has Mrs. Such and such got hers? I'm more at risk than they am. And it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like what Joe was saying, we've been doing it for a year now, and you are tired and you're stressed and you have felt that you're carrying a lot more than you thought you could. And then if you get a comment, you're not doing it right, or you're not doing it equally and fairly, you think, I really am, trust me, we really are. And so I find that tough at the minute.
Yeah. I probably just find it's probably more, rather than making it harder, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating sometimes that people have these ideas, and it's okay to have an opinion about a vaccine, don't get me wrong, but I struggle then when people try to force their opinion on other people. And social media is good for some things, but it's like, as that guy, what is his name, Attila, that did the podcast a few weeks ago about social media and the internet, it is so unregulated. Like somebody can just literally start up a website and put whatever they want on it. So people base their opinions about COVID and about the vaccine on information that they've heard from somewhere. But I just be wary of that, because you don't know where that information has come from. And then I find that frustrating.
Sure.
To me, if you want to know about vaccines and know the right facts about vaccines, go to a reputable, is that the right word? Reputable website, like the Oxford Vaccine Knowledge website, fantastic about vaccines, and every question that you could think of about the COVID vaccine is on there. So at times I find it frustrating just when there's misinformation going about and people just want to cling on to that rather than actually finding out the proper facts.
And why I find that really helpful, Joe, is because although we're, like, as Paul said at the start, we don't know the full ins and outs of everything that's going on, but I do feel a slight responsibility to make sure that at least we're pointing people in the right direction. And I think that will be a great thing, that we will be able to communicate to people, to put in the footnotes that there are, like, if we're going to make a strong opinion, let's be well informed.
Absolutely.
I'm like you, whether it's a vaccine or what it is, if you're going to make a strong opinion, no matter what area of life it is, come into it well informed at least, because the misinformation that you're spreading is really irresponsible and potentially damaging to people.
It can cause so much damage and danger because it just creates anxiety among people, and everybody's anxious enough at the minute without extra anxiety.
Just really quickly, Joe, could you just comment for a minute or two just on how things are right now in
from
ICU?
What I know now, I wasn't in last weekend because things have really quietened down. So I think maybe the numbers are definitely, I don't know exact numbers, but they're in single figures anyway, from my understanding. That's not, the virus hasn't gone by no means. It's hard to know, are we seeing the benefit, the reduced numbers because of the lockdown or because of the vaccine? I hope it's a combination of all those things. But we still need to be really vigilant.
Lynsey, anything that you think would be really helpful for people to hear?
Well, I think just even on what Joe's saying there, people still need to be vigilant. The amount of, whenever we did our first batch of vaccines in our over 80s, the amount of those folks that said, so Lynsey, after these 2 weeks, I can go and see the wee one. And then I just go on out to the shops whenever. No. Yes, it's after 2 weeks we are seeing really good immunity, and then after the 12 weeks even better, and that is brilliant, and that's to be celebrated. But I think it is that risk where people are saying the numbers are going down, I'm vaccinated, sure I'll be okay, and that is where you start playing with fire then. So I think people, and it is different even for me, whenever I got both my vaccines, there was an element of, whew, I'm good to go, let's go on this, But you just have to be wise and remember, and even as Sonny was saying earlier, it is like flu. We still, these things, it's not going to go away. It's not going to be away next winter. There is a long term here. So
yeah. So two final questions. I'll be as personal and as honest as you're willing to be. Start with you, Joanne. Asking is both. What has kept you going through the difficult days?
Being honest, it's probably other people. So Neville, my husband, has been fabulous with the kids. You can imagine having 3 kids and trying to work your permanent job and then doing extra shifts. I wouldn't have been able to do it. Only he was so supportive.
I was going to say I can't imagine having 3 kids, but you lost me with the rest of it.
He has been so supportive, and has encouraged me to go in, because he knows that that's my calling and that's what I love to do, and I love to care for people, and he could see that I was thriving. It's hard to imagine, but I did enjoy looking after critically ill patients. So he encouraged me in that. Probably then family as well. I have 3 sisters who are all in the front line too. So being able to talk to them afterwards and debrief is always a really good help. Neil's wife, Judith, was an ICU nurse as well. And so quite often Judith got a phone call just to go through the whole details with her. So things like that. The ladies and the church family holding me in prayer, definitely we can't fault. And I myself probably really loved worship. I remember going in one night to night duty and thinking, what am I going in to face? And I can't remember the song. I was trying to think of this the other day. There was a song came on Primary Christian Radio. Well, I belted that song at the top of my voice, and I thought, this is my anthem for going in tonight to ICU. And it helped. And
well, would you believe it? We have that song now for you to belt out. Hit play.
I can't remember what it was. It was really annoying me because I remember taking the link and sending it to Neville and say, I've just belted this out the whole way into work.
Very good. Brilliant. Lynsey?
Yeah, like Joe, I suppose as I said earlier, I find work a real blessing, and like you, Joe, I probably did thrive, and I feel like I stepped up a game as well. But I definitely think Reuben being at home with the wee ones, and just even having the wee ones, and I kept saying to them, the fact that there were wee ones and not a single child, I feel for those families who are possibly single parent families or kids who have been on their own, and especially that first lockdown where they weren't allowed out. I just think we were really fortunate and took a lot away from that. And even before earlier on this evening, I was thinking, Neil, what questions is he going to ask? Or is he going to ask, what's your memory? And one of my memories is whenever we did the chalk hopscotch out the front of the house. And I took so much from that, just seeing and it was, as you say, it was the families, and we got to see the same families going around. You do get an insight into it, and you do get an insight. That's why I love practice nursing, because you get so involved in families' lives. And I suppose I just got so much from that. But definitely, as I said earlier, my work family, I think we've just all knit together as a good wee team. And you have your bad days. Not every day you love all the bits of your family, but it's good to laugh. As you say, Joe, you have to just take the time to either sing it out or laugh it out or cry it out. Just take it as it comes and don't be afraid of it.
Really good, Lynsey. Just on that note, for people that don't know, Lynsey's house is on the route that most people take when they're walking around the village. You have to walk past Lynsey's house. So the problem is, Lynsey, because it was just such a feature of the first lockdown, and now that the brighter days have come back, people are assuming thinking the brighter days are coming back. Is that woman going to do the chalk on the pavement again?
Well, even the kids there saying, when are you buying the big block of chalks again? Because I have to do the hopscotch.
Yeah, come on.
But yeah,
Lynsey.
Reuben and I took more out of that than the kids.
We'll start a wee petition here. And then Joanne, your hopes for the rest of this year, or
well, I think I think my hope is the same as most of Northern Ireland, and to be back to some sort of normality really soon. Which is, as Lynsey says, I would vaccinate all day, every day, if I could, to make sure that we can get to that stage. But I think over lockdown and throughout the past year, it has just taught me, like Neville and I are real social butterflies, and we love not running the roads, but we just love socializing. And look at his face, you see. I think it has just taught me that we don't need to do that. And I really value the time that I've been able to spend with Neville and the kids just in the house, and valuing that. And I hope that continues, but don't get back into the rat race again, you know. And I hope just to continue to do what I feel that my calling is, to care for people, whether that's in the hospital or whether that's in practice nursing, or my family, or even just people that we have in our home that sit around our table, that we can continue to care for them in the best way that I can.
Brilliant. Super. Lynsey?
Yeah, just as Joe says, I run the roads a lot. It's been a big struggle of mine. I don't do well, and as Neil has seen, obviously walking past my house, I have to be decorating because there's nothing else to do. But when we ever bought this house, we remember our minister came in here when we moved in, and he prayed, and he just said, you know, I pray this house is used for people. And we've always stuck to that, you know, that the house would have an open door policy. And I have hated the fact that I can't have friends around, and especially after the school run, that between that 1:30 and 2:45, you know, there was always mummies would have come back here and had a coffee, half a packet of custard creams or whatever, and I miss that. And I feel, you know, that would be one of the biggest blessings, to get the front door open and have people back in the house. So that would be one of my hopes for this year.
Brilliant. Honestly, yours has been so good. Sorry, Lynsey, there is one question I didn't prepare you for. It's maybe your hopes for 2021, but Peter Cardwell's got a hope for 2036 in getting Rich Hill Gates back. Have you any
Yes.
Do you want to add your 2 cents worth into that conversation?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that one myself. and that wee letter that my kids got back from the Queen gets WhatsApped around quite a lot. Did you know my children got a letter from the Queen?
That was brilliant. I didn't know.
I was thinking Oprah didn't even bring it up in the interview last night. You know, she should have asked Harry.
Oh, that's brilliant. I didn't know that you had a letter. Did your kids have a letter?
the kids sent a letter back 3.5 years ago to the Queen. They wrote it in their wee handwriting and documented and sent photographs to her, and we got an official letter back. So.
That is true. Everybody we've had on from Rich Hill has somehow brought up the Gates. That Gates story trumps them all. That is pretty impressive. I'm gonna hand back to Paul, but can I just say again, I have so enjoyed this. I find myself being moved and just so grateful for what you have shared. And just this theme of family, I suppose that for me, I know nobody's asking me the question, but my dream is hearing some of your answers to some of the questions, and also hearing your hopes and dreams, that sense of family and community would be so solidified like never before. I'm longing for that, and I think listening to you both has probably increased that over the last 45 minutes or so. So thank you so much for your time and all that you are doing and have done over the last year. Bless you both. Paul, hand back to you.
Thank you so much. Really, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And just to kind of wrap things up with you, Sonny, welcome you back into the fold here. But just from probably looking into the future, what we learn from what we've been through, what can we do different? Or what have we been doing well? What can we learn? Give us a wee bit of hope, a wee bit of insight there.
Well, Paul, yes, what have we learned? So we have learned that we can efficiently work from being away from the actual site where we have to be. For starters, Paul, you have been home since the beginning of lockdown, but which hasn't really affected the productivity. So there are much more people like you, or much more people who can work, be more productive, and be away from the actual place of work, so which can efficiently happen. So we have learned that for starters. So the impact of that on the environment as well. So lots of fuel being saved, lots of energy being conserved, uh, the different multitude of things. So we have learned that we won't actually have a economic impact in people being away from work and working from place where they feel fit or be more productive. Actually, is one part. The second part would be well, the trust about the medical sciences and uh, how exactly we can develop a particular take up a particular problem and develop a solution for that in a fast paced basis. So, and what are the investments required and how supportive can people be towards that end is another thing. So I mean, as I said before, and as I keep repeating, so the virus isn't going away. So we are nowhere close to defeating the whole thing. So we still have a lot of R&D and research programs that we have to look into. So there are lots of other emerging viruses that are coming up as well. So we have to prepare ourselves for the future as well. So we have, I mean, as I said earlier, so by staying away from each other, by protecting the loved ones, and by being by ourselves, so we have certainly indicated that the transmission of other viruses and other infections and everything have certainly gone down. So we now know, and we have now prepared ourselves for what lies ahead in the future, and what exactly is the route that we should take in case we come across such an instance in the future, which I totally hope we don't. But being preparedness is one huge thing. We know where the leaks in the whole system lies, and we have already seen how to plug them, and we can now efficiently try find a permanent solution for those leaks and maybe work out more. Of course, educating the people, educating the masses about the preparedness and how the vaccination programs have worked earlier and how they will work now, and how will they work in future. Bringing hope to families is certainly a big thing that we have learned in this year. And of course, everyone has missed traveling out, and everyone has missed seeing the loved ones for a long extended period of time, especially me as well. So this brings a lot of hope for the future. And we know where we shouldn't be going wrong the next time. So it's always a learning curve and a learning process. So I think
Yeah.
we'll get there, Paul. It's a very hopeful situation that we are in now.
Yeah.
And I hope the future has much more better days for us.
Yeah. I think my fear is that if we come out of lockdown, we just sort of snap back into what it was like before without having sort of really kind of reflected on what we've been through, reflected on the things we've picked up, as in new practice, like you're saying, sort of working in new ways, and maybe appreciating community and friendships and stuff a lot more. And also probably, I'm sure you probably have you've been looking into kind of the impact on the environment, maybe the mistakes we made when it came to how we treat the world that maybe brought us to this point. But yeah, anything else, Sonny, or anything else you can share with us?
Yeah, Paul. Well, there are certainly a lot of environmental factors that is contributing as well. So we have the global warming, our current view on the healthcare system. So how are we contributing? I mean, most of us are lucky in a sense that we are in a very developed part of the planet. So we also have to look at the economic burden that this virus has caused on the lives of and the livelihoods of a lot of other third world countries and smaller countries, especially some poorer countries in Asia, some countries in South America and Africa. So how they have all suffered in a larger sense. So and it also becomes a moral obligation for us. So the more the virus stays within ourselves, the more it starts to adapt, the more variants that it develops, the more fight that the virus will put upon us to get rid of it from this from the current situation. So we have done it before. We have done it for smallpox. We have done it for polio, which had taken a lot of toll. We have done it for measles. We have done it for rubella. We are currently working on. There are lots of new scientific developments on tuberculosis, on malaria, and lots of infections and viruses which have had a deep impact on the humanity. So we have defeated such kind of enemies before. So it's always a learning curve on how to get adapted for a newer virus and how to come out from this. So we have seen the economic burden that this virus has caused on all aspects of life. So what I would stress is, so whatever lessons that we have learned now, we keep following this for a longer term of period and for a longer period of time, so that we protect more and more individuals, and we invest more time. We give scientists and we give healthcare workers more time to work on these and get back with a finer solution on these aspects. I think that is one takeaway, a take-home lesson from this whole situation that we are facing now.
Yeah. Well, really appreciate what you guys do, all three of you, and just in all those different professions that are all kind of working together for the same this greater good, and it's wonderful. But we always end. We're on a hopeful note. I'm glad of that. We always end on the same question. Neil, you might want to ask it. And I don't know if you guys have been prepared for it, but get ready for this one. Neil?
I'm not precious about it, Paul. Like, you could have asked it. Joanne should know. She's watched it.
Joe knows what's coming up, yeah.
Just really quickly, I always like to know, it's probably just like for self-indulgent reasons, but I do like to know what people are watching, where you're getting your entertainment from. What are you watching, reading, or listening to that you would recommend to our listeners?
These are all very busy people, by the way, so they might not be watching.
No, that's what I don't know if Joanne. Well, she listens to something. I don't know if she watches or reads anything. It's just time to. But
so am I going first then?
You go first.
I listen to these podcasts on a Tuesday night, and yes, and I would listen to just to Phil Emerson on each weekday morning at 7:30. Just listen to his wee daily devotional. That's my listening. And watching, oh dear, I'm nearly embarrassed to say it, but I really do enjoy it. Heartland on Netflix. It's a cheesy American based on a horse ranch type thing, but it's just like watching, and I do enjoy it. And I'm watching the new series Bloodlines. Isn't it Bloodlines on BBC One?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Bloodlands.
Bloodlands.
Yeah.
Got there eventually. Thank you, Lynsey.
I knew what you meant.
Thank you.
Bloodlines, that must be something to do with work, Joe, is it?
Never. No, it's here. What I'd be thinking about. Bloodlands, yes.
Very good. Sunil, what about you? Anything that you're...
Well, for the last note, I wanted to add, there is a lot of information about the viruses on Red Cross, the British Red Cross Society. And I came across this, the WHO also has a variety of information on viruses, and I am particularly sure they wouldn't be lying about anything.
Yeah.
And I trust the information that they provide. The statistics and everything is really good. the University College London has a special podcast entirely about the coronavirus and information and for educative purposes. So they are bringing across a panel of good scientists. I really do enjoy listening to their podcasts every week as well. So they bring in lots of epidemiologists, social care workers, scientists, healthcare professionals, everybody. And the information that they disseminate is very nice and very easy to understand. So particularly, yes, I enjoy listening to music. Certainly, yes. And I speak 5 languages, so I have a lot of music to catch up on. So I have lots of music to catch up on, which is very limited part of my time. For watching, I have subscribed for Netflix and Amazon, and I was watching Dead to Me last week. And have any one of you have watched it or something?
No.
I mean, should try it. It was kind of okay.
Kind of okay. You're selling there.
You're selling.
It was kind of. I mean, I've seen worse. So this was at least watchable till the 2nd season. And I have started watching The Young Offenders for a couple of seasons now.
Very good.
Super.
Trying to keep myself entertained during these unforeseen circumstances, but I'm getting there.
Thanks, Sunil. Lynsey?
Yeah, up to series 3 or episode 3 of Bloodlands, but I love murder and crime dramas, so we're watching Mindhunter. I think it's on Netflix as well.
Very good.
Yeah,
it's
lovely.
good. It's good. Yeah. But I sit like this a lot of the time myself. I like this.
Yes, I'm really loving Jimmy Nesbitt's overacting in Bloodlands. It's brilliant, isn't it?
His face is a wee bit grumpy, isn't it?
Line of Duty.
That's why I like it.
Line of Duty starting this week.
Yes, come on. Now you're talking.
Can't wait.
Something I've never watched.
Lockdown can.
Line of Duty?
No.
Neither have I. I'm with you.
You have to catch up.
Oh, I wish I had 5 series of Line of Duty to catch up on.
Oh, so good.
Right, before we go into we could end up talking here for another hour about Netflix shows.
Mm-hmm.
But again, guys, thank you so much for your time tonight, Sunil, Joanne, and Lynsey. It's been really, really good, really helpful. So thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening, watching, wherever you've done that. And we'll catch you again next time.
And I'm just going to steal your thunder, Neil, and say, instead of letting it wrap up there, I also want to say thank you to our viewers online. We've got a lot of positive comments from people watching on Facebook.
Good.
A lot of support for everyone tonight, and a lot of appreciation for everything you're all doing. So thank you, and thank you to all the comments on Facebook. Good night.
Ordinary People was hosted by Neil Dawson. It was produced, edited and engineered by Andrew Gribbon and Paul Woods. Head over to ordinarypodcast.com for show notes, links, previous episodes and all the ways you can contact the show. See you next time.